In our last session, we got started working with bitmap or raster objects in CorelDRAW X6, and we took an in-depth look at monochromes and grayscales and halftones and how we can work with raster objects that have spot color properties associated with them in CorelDRAW so that we can do our color separations for screen printing and how those would translate into halftones. In this session, I want to take a look at a couple of different projects. These will be production artwork projects, but those of you who are working in the industry already know that your clients are supplying with all kinds of different raster and bitmap images that you have to convert into print-ready graphics for color separations. And take a look at a few things here. First thing you're going to need to be aware of when you get client-supplied artwork is that you're going to need decent image quality in order to do correct color separations, even dealing with raster objects. And we can see with this United Association graphic, it was actually scanned off a t-shirt, and if you're new to the business, you're going to see some of this. This we really wouldn't be able to do anything with. We'd just have to go ahead and recreate that as vector. Beneath that, I have the Hot 107 logo, and we've got a couple of different resolutions here. We've got a 300 dpi image, we've got a 72 dpi image, and we've got a 28 dpi image, very low resolution. When you're getting client supplied files or looking to work with raster or bitmap images in CorelDRAW, you're going to have to pay attention to resolution and size. For example, if we want to take this graphic, which we have a tutorial on advancedartist.com where we separate this, it's about half or 3/4 of the page down the free tutorials at advancedartist.com, how we separate this in a matter of 15 minutes using Corel Photo Paint, but we got good resolution to work with to do that. And if you're down here and you can zoom in, you can see on this lower resolution where we've got these highlights of purple, or I guess shading of purple in the green text here, you can see the difference in the 300 dpi image. It's basically lost in the lower resolution images. Even here in the 28 dpi, actually this is the 72 right here. I just clicked on it and you can see in the status bar, I'll tell you what your resolution for your image is. So what's going to happen if I try and separate this for a 12-inch wide t-shirt, it's really not going to work. Now, this graphic is very forgiving in that it's very grungy and artistic looking, so it's very easy to separate in Photo Paint as opposed to trying to convert it to vector. You could also vector trace this with Corel Power Trace and probably get a decent result, but we use this as an example. Beneath that, I have the My Child is a Star at Cuddle Time, and this is also a very forgiving raster image for setting up for production artwork because the font is not perfectly shaped or lined, and you can take this apart very easily, convert it to monochrome bitmaps, and color separate it and put it out. Same with this logo here. You'll see that this is going to be very forgiving. Even though you've got an oval here, you could pull this apart as monochrome and then put it on top of a vector oval, and you've got a mix of monochrome with vector. And we'll take a look at that here. Here I've got the Red Lobster logo, and that's set up at 265 dpi, which was sufficient for me to set the output up with. So when we went to production, we had some changes here, but I actually mixed a monochrome, which I just took this out of the graphic in Corel Photo Paint, and mixed that with my vector. I recreated the rectangle and then put in the Red Lobster logo here. And we've got some vector here in the background. Then we've got a vector object around. Let's go to View Wireframe. And then we've got a vector object around the crab. Very easy to create, very easy setup. And we'll go ahead and take a look at that in this session. I'm going to go back to View and Enhanced. And the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and click on my Red Lobster logo. I'm going to go to Bitmaps, and I'm going to click on Edit Bitmap, or I could get to that also over here in the Properties bar. And that will open my graphic in Corel Photo Paint. Now when you get into Photo Paint, the first thing you want to be aware of is you've just left the realm of vector and you've come into the realm of pixels, and you've got an entirely different tool set and things work quite differently. The workspace is not the same, and really what you're working with is the objects Docker over here, and here is my background image, or the bitmap that came in from CorelDRAW, and now I'm in Photo Paint. And you will want to be aware of what's going on with this objects Docker, because this is where you'll be really managing different objects. And back in the CorelDRAW workspace, we can select things and move them around and do different things with them. But here in Photo Paint, it's a little bit different. We typically work with objects that we have layered on top of each other. But what I want to do is just take a look at how we can pull this graphic apart. Now, the way this is set up, I'm zooming in here and I'm looking, I can see that I do have some pixelation around my graphic here. And all I want to do is get my lobster out of here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come over here to the rectangle mask tool, left click, hold down, and go to the magic wand, and I'm going to make a mask. And all I'm going to do is just left click here, and you can see that now I have this red around everything. But I've selected part of this lobster and I want to select the rest of it. The next thing I'm going to do is simply hold down Shift and click here, and I'm removing this mask or adding to the mask here, and I'm taking this white areas that I don't want of my lobster selected and removing them. Then I'm going to come down here and do the same with this. I'm going to do the same with this black here and the same here, and I'm going to zoom in and just hold down Shift and click there, 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 there. I want to get this, this, and this, and also this. And I want to get this white area here and take that out. Now you can see what I've got is I've got all this selected and taken out. I can go ahead here and I'm just going to click these other areas wherever I see the red, and I'm just removing that area of red or changing my mask. Zoom out and I've got another one down here at the bottom. Now you see that all I've got is my lobster selected. Now if I hit on my keyboard the delete key, I'll delete that and remove that, and now I have only my lobster. Now I can go to mask and remove, and I can take this and save it back into Draw. So I'll go ahead and select save, and then I'll go ahead and close Photo Paint. Now here in Draw I've got my lobster back, but I forgot to duplicate it before I started. But that's very easy to do. All I can do is just go ahead and select copy and just kind of store that image on my clipboard, and then hit Control Z and then select paste. Now that I've got my lobster over here pasted in, the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to take this, I'm going to go to bitmaps, I'm going to convert that to a bitmap, and I'm going to go select 300 DPI. I probably might want to go even higher than that. I might, because I'm going to go on a bigger t-shirt design, I'll select like 800 DPI grayscale. I'm going to have my anti-aliasing turned off. Let's take a look at why. I'll go ahead and process it with anti-aliasing turned on. It really wouldn't matter in a grayscale, but we'll take a look at it because we're going to convert. But you can see that I got some soft edge or pixelation here that softened that up. I want to hit Control Z, and then I'm going to go to bitmap, convert to bitmap, grayscale 800 DPI, anti-aliasing turned off, select OK, and you'll notice that I didn't get any pixelation here. Now this looks kind of jagged on the edge, but when you output it, it's going to be nice and smooth. The next thing I'm going to do with Draw is I'm going to go ahead and take this object and I'm going to crop it. So I'm going to come over here beneath the Shape tool to the Crop tool, and I'm going to left click and hold down and just drag that right across, and then double click on that, and that's going to crop that. The next thing I'm going to do is take that and go Bitmap, Mode, Black and White, and I'm going to select Line Art. And you'll notice here, because we're already 100% black and white, we don't have any effect on our threshold. I'm going to select OK. Now I have this element of my logo set up as a lobster, and I can give him spot colors if I want to. Right click and left click, etc. But we'll go back to transparent, we'll go back to 100% CMYK. So I just saved myself the time of vector tracing that. I might have been able to use that through Corel's Power Trace, but given the nature of the detail in here, Power Trace is going to struggle and create a lot of vector objects, so it's just easier to go to a monochrome bitmap for setting this up. Now the next thing that I would do with this particular lobster is go ahead and recreate my red lobster logo text here, which we covered some of that in our last tutorial, so I'm not going to get into that. But you can see how quickly we can process these when we see the opportunity to use monochromes as opposed to working with vector and still having our spot colors. Now I want to take this object and duplicate this. just like that. And then the next thing I'm going to do, because I want to get some outline around this to be right around here around my legs and everything, is I'll go ahead and take this object and I'm going to run it through Power Trace. So I'll go to Bitmaps, I'm going to go down to Outline Trace, and I'm going to select Logo. I'm going to let Corel reduce the bitmap, and we're going to run the trace. Now it's not going to be that important for me really into detail, because all I'm doing is capturing the outline of the lobster. I'm going to select OK, and then I'm going to go ahead and ungroup and move. And then I'm just going to go ahead and come through here and get rid of all of this white that I have here. Actually, because I want to select everything that's white, I'm going to go to my advanced tools. I'm going to go to Simple Steps. I'm going to go to Color Management. I'm going to click Create Palette. I've got two whites here. I want to select everything based on both fills and outlines, and I want to go select objects. And Simple Steps selected all of my white objects, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete all of those. Now that that's done, I can see that this is knocked out. I'm just going to right click on this, come up to Curve, and I'm going to break it apart. Now I'm going to go to View Wireframe, because I want to put this back together. And I'm going to take a look at what I'm dealing with here. I'm going to click off. I'm going to click the vector that's going all around the outside, and then I'm going to select this object and this object and this object, and then I'm going to combine these, and I'm going to go back to View and Enhanced. And then I'm going to take this object that I created with vector, lasso all of this stuff and delete it. I'm not going to need it. Now I've got a background for my monochrome lobster from the logo right here, and I can fill this with, let's say, a yellow, just so we can see it. Right click on that, order, and go to back of page. Now I can lasso both of these and hit C and E and see if that will align everything, and it pretty much did. Now that I've got that outline built on around that lobster that I've got there, I'll actually go ahead and key this. I'm going to hold down Alt, select the object beneath, and just key it into position so that it's aligned with the monochrome lobster. So I've got that set up. The next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and get some white in here, and you can see that the way that object is sitting there, it's going to allow me to knock this out. I'm going to go ahead and take this logo here, and I'll go ahead and recreate that right there. Duplicate that, left click one time, drag, move, right click one time, that'll duplicate that. And I'm going to create a rectangle right here. And we'll take this rectangle and we'll just put it right in through here and release so that we match the Red Lobster rectangle. And then we're just going to left click and drag our corners till we get the same outline as we have on the rectangle for Red Lobster. I'm going to right click and take my outline off. I'm going to fill that with a red just briefly to make sure it's identical, and it is. So I'll go ahead and fill that with a black right there. And I can take this, right click, order, and go to back of page for now. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and type in my text, and I'll click here in my workspace with the text tool and I'll type in Red Lobster. Now if I don't have an exact font and I don't know what the font is here, we'll take a look and see if we can find a match. I can use What the Font, which is a tool under text, but I can come down through here and get an interactive look at which fonts are going to be close enough to work with for this layout. And I'm just kind of scrolling my way through here, and I'll come down here and go with Times Roman. I think that's going to be pretty close. If I'm not close enough, I might have to manually trace the font if I can't find it. And coming down into here to Times Roman, I'm just looking at different fonts that I have installed on my system. And that's definitely not it. And scrolling down to Times Roman, and let's take a look at that as a bold. And you can see that's very close, and I could go ahead and tweak that font out, but for the sake of the tutorial I won't bother with that. just left click this up here, and we'll go ahead and size this out right about there, and we'll bring this down here, and you can see we're really close. I'm going to fill that with a red. Yep, and actually that is going to work. This has been a Times Roman that apparently was tweaked a little bit. So there I've got my font set up for my logo very easily. Got an object here which is around the outside of my rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and create that also. Once again, I'll do that with just the rectangle tool. I'll just left click, hold down, and drag this over here until it's the same as the one that I'm tracing over. Or I could have used the contour tool on my original graphic, but we'll make sure that we've got the same here going on. I'm going to right click and remove my outline, and then right click and put it back. I'm going to go ahead and close this palette. Then I'm going to go to my Object Properties Docker. If I have that open, I don't, so I'll just go ahead and right click here and come down to Object Properties. So that is open. Take a look here. Object Properties, these little two arrows, you can't see it, but if you click it, it'll show you all your different Dockers. And I'll come here to Object Properties, and then that'll open up. And I'm going to give that an outline of, let's say, we'll take a look at 2 points here initially. We'll give that red so we can see it. And actually that'll be alright. Now at this point, all I need to do is I got these two ellipses up here going through the background, and I'll create those with vector also. So I'll go to my ellipse tool, and we'll just bring that right over here so it's just about the same as what you've got here as far as the ellipse is concerned. Now what I want to do is go to View Wireframe so I can see a little bit better. Make sure that my ellipse is exactly the same as the one that's here. And I'm going to go ahead and click this again. Now you'll notice that your gray handles here will disappear, but they're still here. And if you come out here and just kind of come here, you'll see them, and you can start to adjust that and do the same over here. And I'm going to come up here to the top and pull this up just a bit right there, and then we'll bring this back in here a little bit again, and basically the same thing there. Now I want to do the same thing down here, so what I want to do is just duplicate this. I'm going to hold down Shift so it goes to the center while I'm resizing, and bring that right down to there. So I've got the other ellipse there. Now I needed to hold down, I needed to right click one time while I did that. Hold down Shift, left click, hold down, right click one time to duplicate, and then release right there, and now I've got both of them. Now what I'm going to want to do with these is trim them. So I'll go ahead and create a rectangle right here, and I'll select both of these, holding down Shift, both of these ellipses. I'll come up here and click on front minus back, and there are my two ellipses going up into my graphic. Go ahead and click on View here, go back to Enhanced. I'm going to go ahead and click on the actual bitmap here that I'm working with, and I'm just going to right click on that and go Order and go to Back of Page. Right there, now we can see we've got our red lobster text set up. I'll fill that with a white, and I had the whole rectangle selected there. That's not what I wanted. I'm going to hold down Alt and get down to my text and fill that with a white. And I've got the outline here on this rectangle. I'm going to right click and change that to a black. And then I'm going to get my lobster that I recreated here. I'll lasso that and bring this over here on top of the logo that I'm actually working with. Remember, I've got that vector power trace object in the background. And I'll duplicate that here. Go ahead and lasso that again and make it the same size as the one beneath. Hold down Shift because I didn't have my monochrome selected, and resize that on top of the other one right here. And then I'll just key that in using the arrow key to bring that down just a bit. I'm going to go ahead for the moment and just hit Control Page Up to bring that to the front right there. And that'll bring that to the front of my graphic, or I could right click on it and select Order and go to front of page, but we're already to the front of page here. Now the only thing I've got left to deal with is the fact that I need to get this outline around the lobster coming out around the rest of my graphic. hold down Alt and select my yellow object. I'll come over here and give that a 10-point outline. And I'm going to go ahead and smooth my corners and my end caps. And then I'll just go ahead and right click and fill that with a white. Excuse me, make my outline white, and then left click and make my fill white. And I can come over here, and I think that's a little bit too much. We'll pick this down to, let's say, 4. Now I've got this basically recreated, so what I want to do is take a look at it in comparison. And you can see the outline here that we're dealing with compared to the outline here. I'm going to hold down Alt, click again, and get my vector object in the background and change that outline to, let's say, 8 points, and see if that's big enough. And that seems to do the job. So you can see that here very quickly I was able to convert this to a monochrome and rebuild this logo very easily by starting out and working with a monochrome and going to photo paint as opposed to working with draw. The last steps here is going to be, I'm going to select this oval, right click on that, order to back of page. I'm going to take this rectangle, right click, order, and I did this wrong, I should have done the other one first, but to back of page, fill that with a white. Now send my ellipses, order, and to back of page. And now I've got my logo recreated using a mixture of vector and monochrome, and I also have full spot color control. If I want to change this to a red, I can do that, and if I want to change here to red, I can do that, and if I wanted to use spot colors, I could do that also. Change this to a red spot color, and we'll right click there to change that. I can change the outline in the rectangle to a red, and I can change my ellipse to a red also. And just go over here and click on this and get that selected, and right click and change that to a red. And here we are, we've recreated the Red Lobster logo. But we'll go ahead and wrap here, but I just wanted to lay a foundation for how you can work with monochrome and vector together when you're doing your production artwork. Go ahead and wrap here, and we'll continue in our next session.